Yeah, and I think the question too, going back to what I was sharing, like in a case where maybe a sponsor or someone else has hired you to now work with the client,
Mhm.
whether it be an adult or a teen, the question was asked. Brooke asked the question: is it the coach's job to change their minds, or how does a coach do that? I would say, from my perspective, and then y'all can chime in. For me, as I approach it, I wouldn't take on the job or the role of changing their mind, because I don't necessarily want to change their mind. I want to show up, because that, I always say this in classes too. I think the superpower in coaching is presence and showing up. So I want them to experience what that is as I show up and go through that coaching. And I want them to begin to make up their mind, because there could still be a resistance to where now, as we started the conversation with someone that doesn't want to be coached, technically coaching can't work because there's no willingness on their part to maybe receive that help, or at the very least be open to it. So as I'm holding that space of coaching, now I want them to begin to make up their mind. And it may come to the point where, okay, is this what you want? And when that comes up as of no, then now we can proceed. Whether it's severing the ties or finding what they actually need in that moment. But I think that's a great way too of thinking about it. I don't want to necessarily change their mind. I just want to show up and proceed with that coaching, and hopefully the value that they get from it, which is totally different than maybe what they expected, which is maybe one of the reasons why they didn't want to do it in the first place. Maybe the value that they get can change their minds over time.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the research that can you hear me?
Go ahead, Jen. Mm-hmm.
In some of the research that we did, it mentioned that the tipping point typically for someone who doesn't want to be coached is when they recognize they're in a space of non-judgment. When they realize that is typically when they start to come around and go, oh, wow, this is good. This is nice. Like you didn't maybe expect that when you came into it. And now they're receiving that. And that is potentially what gets them to turn around and actually start to be into coaching. Is recognizing that safe space.
Yeah. There's a story, Dan, I forget if he mentions this in level 1 or level 2, where he speaks about coaching a younger person who I think under 18 or around that age of 18, where it took him a little while to get through to him. What they had started talking about, where they actually developed some rapport, was when he spoke about sports. He was talking about football. So sometimes it takes a little while. You've got to get that rapport going. But once again, that client feels a connection with you, then that's, kind of when that point of unraveling and being vulnerable starts to begin. Yeah. Because at that point they trust you.
Right. And I think that's almost a foundation too of that coaching really working, when they build that trust, when you through building that rapport, and they start to trust you, and now they're open. We think of coaching in that co-collaborative space, right? Where we're working with the client on their goals, but it's a collaboration. And to get to that space, it has to be trust. I have to trust you. Okay, Jerome. All right, now I get it. I understand coaching. Now I trust Jerome in this coaching space. So with the client, if we go back to that client that doesn't want to be coached, the question came in, redirecting a client that doesn't want you to coach them. Now, this is a client that they're signing up for coaching with you as a coach. How do we navigate that client who is waiting? Maybe they're wanting you to come from a space of coaching more into consulting or mentoring. They're wanting that praise, advice, guidance, or agreement. What does that process look like for us to navigate that space? Listen, I don't want you to coach me here. Just tell me what to do. Well, listen, Lisa, I came to you so you can tell me what to do. So tell me, you're the expert here. How do we navigate that space?
I usually, in that especially beginning phase, go, I definitely have opinions. I could have advice, but I've never done a day in a walk in your life.